Well, my Gladiator is still broke, and for everyone that keeps asking about it, I figured I would do a quick update video on why it's still broke, what I think I'm going to do next, and really what my options are. So if you're not familiar, this is my 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. It's been a really solid Jeep. I bought it stock in 2020 and have been building it up ever since then. I do a lot of videos for Driving Line. I'm their senior off-road editor, so you may recognize the Jeep from me doing stuff on that channel. My last video I did with them, I went up to Wind Rock, went wheeling with this thing, had an absolute blast, and I got the dreaded pop that I've sort of been waiting on coming from my front axle. Now, this Jeep has a set of Dynatrac Pro Rock XD60 axles, and when I ordered them, I opted to go with the Eaton Elocker. This was like the latest and greatest Eaton selectable locker, 35 spline. I had had nothing but good experiences with electric lockers in the past, and I'd had ARBs and I'd had leaks with ARBs. They're kind of known, that can happen. So I decided, you know what, let's just go with electric lockers. I think that would be fine, and hadn't really seen anybody have any issues. Well, fast forward about a year into owning the E-Locker and the axle set, and I was in Moab and I hear a big pop from the rear axle. I'm like, ooh, that's not good. And lo and behold, I found that I broke a few teeth off inside from that locking mechanism, which was admittedly a really big bummer. I was able to drive back all the way from Moab to my home in North Carolina, pulled apart the rear axle at home just to see what I had done. I initially thought, you know what, I can just get the new gear set for inside and rebuild it. It didn't seem that complicated to do. Turns out you couldn't get Eaton replacement parts to do that. Dynatrac was awesome. They actually warrantied the differential and got me a brand new Eaton, and I basically replaced the locker and said, okay, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Fast forward about a year later, and bam, I was in the same boat. Rear locker started to skip, pop, and I had broken another Eaton E-Locker. Really disappointed in that. At this point, I didn't even care if I could get it covered under warranty, because I just didn't want to go through that hassle of, you know, having to swap out the differential again. So I decided to buy a ARB air locker for the back, and I went to my local off-road shop, Low Range 4x4, to make sure, because I don't set up gears, and make sure that that was done correctly. So we put the ARB in, and to date, it's been in there a couple of years, and it's been great. No problems, no air leaks, knock on wood, nothing like that. And now I am battling what I knew was probably going to come eventually, and that is the front locker. Is that same Eaton locker is starting to pop. And that's pretty much a telltale sign that the gears are slipping or they're damaged inside of that differential. And before it gets worse, I need to go ahead and come up with a game plan. Now, the sort of like, oh, why don't you just get another ARB? That's kind of like, oh, that makes sense. But then it's like, man, that's another $2,000 to put replace the locker. It's a much bigger job because I got to tear the whole front end apart to do it. And I'm kind of like, gosh, if I do the ARB, I haven't had any problems with air leaks out of the rear, but now I'm like, oh God, I could. Do I want to worry about it? ARBs, I feel like don't do really well when they sit a lot. And what I mean by that is the rear axle, it's always getting oil. The differential gear oil is always moving around when you're driving. Up front, I got selectable hubs. The diff is just sitting until you lock it in four-wheel drive. And admittedly, this thing doesn't get driven sometimes for a month or two. And so I'm like, man, is that going to be a problem? That's been an issue in the past with an ARB I've had in another truck. And so I'm a little worried about going the ARB route. Now, I could go another Eaton, but I feel like I've learned my lesson, and I don't feel like they've changed anything that would indicate to me that that locker has been improved. So I don't think I want to go that way. And now what I'm really debating on is, should I just go with a Detroit front locker? Now, a Detroit is a full-time automatic front locker. It does actually have a little bit of a give, so it's not like a spool like an ARB when it's fully locked up. The problem is it's basically always engaged, and that's a lot of stress on your front end compared to just having it, you know, completely open. And that's a tough one. Do I want to trade off? I've got hydraulic assist. I feel like the steering can handle it just fine. In fact, it'd probably be a little bit lighter on it compared to, you know, when the ARB is engaged. I don't have to worry about an air line failing. Detroit lockers, in my experience, have always been pretty much bulletproof. The only other thing that I want to look at is, or really invest in if I go that way, is I'll probably swap out the axle shafts that I have. Not because they're bad, but because if you're going to have a full-time locker in the front axle, as you turn with a traditional U-joint, it changes speed and you get this whipping action, and it's kind of weakens the joint, makes the steering really clunky. So I'd want to swap those axle shafts out for a set of RCV axle shafts. So now you're talking a bigger investment and swapping out axle shafts. So I'm really torn. I'm definitely thinking that I'm leaning toward just making this thing simple and reliable and just putting the Detroit in the front, put the RCVs in, and I'll call it a day. Now, as of right now, we're still driving the Jeep and using it in four-wheel drive. I'm just not using the front locker. You know, so we're still going on the beach and things like that with it and taking small trips with the kids. But before I put this thing back in Windrock or do any more serious adventures, I'm going to have to get this thing fixed and do it the right way so I don't have to worry about this thing on the trail. So that's kind of what's going on. Hood's popped because it's just sitting here on a battery tender in my little warehouse here. And, you know, this Jeep, honest to goodness, has been fairly reliable. Not a lot of weird stuff has happened with it. You know, it's kind of funny. I never thought I'd have so many problems out of my aftermarket expensive axle set versus the factory ones. I've never broken, knock on wood, a factory like Wrangler locker, and it's a completely different company. It's not Eaton that builds those. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. Unlucky me. I know I'm not the only one. There's quite a few other channels that have experienced the same sort of Eaton failure, and I think I'm just going to go probably Detroit right now, but I'd be curious to see what the internet says about this. I know the ARB would be a lot smoother on the front end and easier if it just kept it open, but again, if it leaks, then you got to pull the whole diff out and, you know, replace the seals, and I've gone down that road. I've had to do all that, so I don't know. I think for something that the way I use this thing at this point, I feel like having the Detroit in the front and the ARB in the back might be the way to go. So that's it. Just wanted to do a kind of quick video update. I get a lot of people that ask about this Jeep. I love this thing. It really has been such a solid vehicle, and we've wheeled it so much. And you know, I'm getting ready to put the tent back on so we can get the kids back out camping this fall. And it's just one of those things where it's a bummer that it's broke. I'm super fortunate that I've got way too many other cars, and one of the reasons this thing's been on the back burner is summer just really kicked my butt with family stuff and a bunch of other stuff going on, so this thing just has not been a priority. But this winter is my plan to get this thing back, get the whatever I'm going to do figured out so we can go take this thing on some more wheeling adventures. So that's it. If you got any comments, just drop them right down below. If you want to see some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, a little bit faster updates, you can check me out on all social media at Mansour Editor. Appreciate you guys watching, and hope to see you on the trail. Take care.